Welcome back, everyone, to Mindful Leadership Beyond Borders. I am Betska and Raj, and we are here with Jason Costain on probably one of the most important topics we have covered in our 6 years of podcasting. And one of the things that Raj just talked about was it's a very cruel thing for people to do. For one human being, like, where is the heart? What's happened to the heart? They're just trying to. It's all about stealing money, and Jason was saying that there's some research. The UN did some research that there are over 100,000 prisoners who are involved in fraud globally. So somehow they're being recruited from prisons to make these phone calls or online or whatever. It's like, oh my God, this is nuts. Well, you're a criminal already, so why not recruit these guys? It's pretty wicked. But we want to move now into investment fraud, which has existed for centuries in different forms. And sometimes it takes many years to unwind. So what does history teach us? And in your notes to us, you talked about Charles Ponzi, the Ponzi schemes, the rigged gambling, sunken galleons, identity theft. So, Jason, what has history been teaching us here?
I mean, I think, well, there's a couple of things at play. I mean, there's either scams operate typically by either desire or fear. They prey on people's emotions. Obviously, from a desire perspective, it might be, hey, I can make a quick buck, I can make a fortune, I can double my money or whatever it might be. So, that they're playing on people's ultimate desires to be more wealthy. And actually, I've seen with a lot of scam victims, they mightn't be particularly wealthy individuals, but they maybe inherited some money, and they're probably quite ill-equipped to deal with the investment decisions they make, but then they might need to make. But then they also feel a responsibility to not just let the money sit in an account, but to do something with it to make some more money. So they go online, Google it, how do I invest money? What do I do? And if they click on the wrong link, they could be next thing being targeted by scammers to invest in, a property that doesn't exist, or an investment scheme that doesn't exist, or cryptocurrency, or whatever it might be. So yeah, it's people's desire to make more money that's being played on, and also then in a lot of respects their inexperience.
Mm-hmm. Just shows you how human beings are losing touch with their spiritual selves, because when we look at the 10 Commandments, when we look at the 5 Buddhist precepts, etc., it's like, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, right? So that's a topic for another day, but I'm just bringing this up here because humans are not supposed to steal from one another. We incur huge karma when we steal. So these people who are involved in all of this fraud industry are, from a karmic perspective, who knows, they might end up in hell. I don't know. That's up to God to decide, but pretty brutal.
Let's hope they're answerable to someone. And by the way, that the scam compounds I mentioned earlier, they aren't prisoners being recruited to scam. They are people who thought they were going to, say, Cambodia or Myanmar or Laos for a job, and actually they've been recruited, met at the border on arrivals, thinking they're getting an office job, but then they'd be locked up in a prison-like environment and forced to scam people and tortured if they don't achieve the targets or want to work in that way. So they go there with the best endeavors. They want to make money, but ultimately they end up scamming people, and even if they don't want to, they're being forced to and held captive. So there you go, fear or desire, but if the desire led them there in the first place, and fear is what's used to hold them sort of in captivity, really.
Yeah. Fear is a motivator, no question. Yeah.
It's horrible, actually.
What's that, Raj?
It's very horrible.
Yeah. It
I
is.
mean, when I was in Cambodia this time last year, and I was there really as a tourist at first, but then I went back to the country a week or two later to talk to some people in the media and at the consulate. And when I was there the first time, people were falling out of high-rise buildings regularly, and within a 1 mile radius of where I was staying, 3 people fell out of a high-rise building within 7 days, and they were all suspected victims of this kind of scam compound industry, and the buildings that looked like fortresses. You see an office building that's had grills put on the windows, and on the top floor, it's 12-foot high fences ringed with razor wire. That's not to keep people out. That's to keep people in, and people were falling out of those buildings on a regular basis. And then the police didn't seem to be investigating properly, and before you know it, they've been cremated, and there's no evidence. But the suspicion was they were pushed.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. So they were being held captive, right?
It's captivity, it's human slavery, and it's torture. And death.
Wow. So what are some of the common tactics used by criminals to con victims out of their money in the modern world? I know we talked about that the first time you were our guest, but tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the most common, when you look at victims, primarily, probably the biggest group of victims in investment frauds are males. So, probably be sitting on a pot of cash later on in their life, early retirees, that kind of group. And they might be recruited because they've simply Googled investment, opportunities. They might have their interest peaked in crypto, for example. How do I find out about cryptocurrency?
Yeah.
And of course, the advertising online's, not regulated or controlled particularly well. So, lots of scam adverts out there. These days, there's use of AI tools. So some trusted faces, like well-known entrepreneurs, the AI might be used to create a video that says they're invested in something. Elon Musk's a classic person who's had his identity stolen, and he's been marketing cryptocurrency scams, and people are sucked in that way. And then also it can happen with things like, dating sites. So people on dating sites looking for a partner, and then next thing is an attractive person talking to them, and next thing they're talking to them about an investment opportunity. It all sort of captures the imagination of somebody, and they get, their trust is gained, and then next thing they're starting to send money to people ultimately that they've never met. So investment fraud in the UK stats shows that it's much less common in terms of the volume of cases than other types of fraud, but it's more money is lost to investment fraud than any other type of scam. So the average scam case for an investment fraud could be £15,000. So,
interesting.
US. So it's big value, big ticket stuff. And if you can get one of those paying off a month as a scammer, then that's more money than most people make in a lifetime.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what are some telltale signs that someone may be getting scammed, and what steps can we all take to avoid it?
Well, I mean, I suppose the telltale signs it might be a scam. It's often said it's too good. Does it sound too good to be true? But
yeah.
My dad said to me a couple of years back, he said, I've got these 3 different investment schemes I've looked at. They're all property related. They're all overseas property. One of them was in Canada, actually. One of them was in, I think it was Eastern Europe somewhere. I forget where the third one was. But they were all promising rates of return around 8 or 9%. And I said to him, "Afraid, Dad, they're all scams." And he kind of knew it. And he said, "Yeah, but you tell me where I can get that rate of return." I said, "I'm really worried now. You appear to have accepted the fact that 8% is possible, and you're looking for someone who can promise that. It's not. You can't promise that. It might happen, but when you see these adverts guaranteeing that high rate of return, it's not plausible, and therefore it's too good to be true." So if you haven't got that skepticism, you don't know what a plausible rate of return is. You might just think, "Oh, right, 8-9%, I'd like that." And then, of course, with a Ponzi scheme, you're piling money. You might be recruited by other members as well, so friends and family. So, you might have a family friend who comes to you and actually says, I found this great investment. It's paid me some money already as a return. I think it'd be a good thing to put that money you just got from your father's estate who recently died. Maybe it's something you should do with me. Do you want to come on board? And I've seen scam victims unwittingly recruiting other victims for the organised criminals that they've been dealing with. So one victim, she lost £150,000, but she'd also convinced a friend to invest 100,000.
Oh my gosh!
Out of a sense of guilt, she actually gave her friend £100,000 that she'd lost because she felt guilty that she'd persuaded her to do it as well. So that was a £250,000 total loss for this lady who'd actually done the right thing, I suppose, in her mind by refunding her friend. Yeah,
well, that was very good that she did that, but clearly she had the money to do that.
Well, that was all the money she had, so she gave away her last 100,000. So, but I think this is the thing as well. If you're in a foreign country that's a developing country and you've not got a lot of money and there's no real healthcare system, and you may be struggling to put food on the table, and you maybe got a relative who is very sick. People in the West are wealthy targets, and hey, the bank might even refund them. So that's what generally is the rationale used within criminal circles to justify their actions, is we can afford it. We've always got something to fall back on. And, this is just you effectively taking, your share of the pie from people who should know better. So, that's why you get these kind of, to Raj's point earlier, these kind of quite cruel scammers, because they actually see it as a bit of a sport and they don't really understand the consequences of what they do, and they don't care anyway. So, telltale signs. Someone offering you a great investment opportunity, saying they've done really well out of it. Cryptocurrency was a fabulous example of that. Even the taxi driver was telling me he's invested in crypto. When a taxi driver tells you he's invested in crypto, then maybe it's time to get out of crypto, not get into it.
Right.
Family member telling you to come on board, or someone you just met with a great investment opportunity. I mean, in my very early days of banking, one of the stories was, beware the plausible rogue. And what they meant was the guy who shows up in the sports car outside the local bank. This is going back 30 odd years. Who might join the local golf club, get pally with everybody down the pub, and next thing he's taking money off people to invest in some fantastic scheme, and never to be seen again. So that level of skepticism, I think people seem to have a almost like, because they're detached from it. There's a psychology here, because you are detached from handing the physical cash over these days, because it's a push of a button. You're almost too comfortable in your own home, and therefore you haven't got the guard up that you might normally have, where you think, hang on a minute, if they knocked on my door and I'd seen them 5 times in the last month, would I give them all of my life savings in a briefcase? No, I absolutely wouldn't. But sometimes people are sending large amounts of money of just people they've only just met, and there's something about psychology which people relax too much. And in banking, when I was helping design, what we called effective warnings during payment journeys when people are making payments. The bank had a lovely colour palette. You might have noticed banks spend a lot of money on branding. They'd have a lovely colour palette, and the colour palette might be an agreed range of, purple and lavender and green, whatever it might be. And this is what we use. This is on brand. When the fraud team wants to put a big flashing red triangle that says "warning, you might be getting scammed," we came up against the brand police, and we had a big discussion with them about what's the most compelling message we can give. And the message wasn't in nice, friendly, fluffy lavender colours. It was in a bright red or yellow triangle.
Yes,
triangle.
Exactly.
And that's the kind of level of psychological impact we need to have, is break the spell. And banks are now starting to wise up to that fact. But in the old, it was quite difficult to get marketing teams to actually recognise that their brand design was pretty poor when it came to shaking people out of the spell that they're under.
Well, now that's the words you just said, I think, are vitally important. I'd like to just summarize our discussion on this segment here. how do you know? What are the telltale signs, that you might be getting scammed? And using your words wisely, or to use some of your words. It's more, if it's too good to be true, right? Really pay attention that it.
Yeah. So if it's too good to be true, then it more than likely is. If you want to invest money, go on go on the regulator's website, the financial services industry's website, go on banking websites. Don't go to Google and come across the thing you see, even if it looks like Elon Musk telling you. So there is whole industries of regulated financial services investment companies to invest your money with. And they will put you into higher risk investment categories if you choose to do so. But don't go and give your money to someone you've just met. Don't look for returns that are too good to be true. Go down recognized routes for firms that you've heard of before, and where there's a regulator and that supervises them. Don't go to anybody on the internet. Just like you wouldn't give your money to somebody you just met down the pub or knocked on your door.
I would say don't trust anything. Have your own personal red flag, like even check your banks. I mean, just really be very careful with your money.
So. Yeah, and there's a lot of Raj, there's a lot of impersonation these days as well. So there's one victim I saw in Australia. He was approached by an organization who said they were HSBC selling investment bonds in a state of Victoria in Australia. They were just impersonating HSBC. So you've got to just do your homework, but before you take a flight of fancy into some investment you've seen online, who are the established players in the industry? And what makes you think that you can get a rate of return that outperforms those? And what makes you think that what you're doing is as safe as an established firm? And if it's too good to be true, just don't take the risk. Sorry, Raj, go ahead.
Go ahead, Raj. Yeah.
I'm asking all of this situation, but I have noticed some people in this earth, they love flashy lifestyle and they trapped easily.
Yes, that's true.
Whatever warning you give, they don't care. They thought they are right, and they are attracted through these glamorized pictures, lifestyle, flashy lifestyle, and they trapped easily.
And that's it. And the criminals will play on that desire for people to. I'd call it making a quick buck. Other people might say, I'm investing in crypto, and I shake my head when I hear people say they're investing in crypto. It's like saying I'm investing in, the Kentucky Derby. It's gambling.
Yeah, really,
It's gambling.
You're gambling. Yeah.
The UK Financial Conduct Authority says if you invest in cryptocurrency, be prepared to lose all of your money. And I couldn't have put it more clearly.
Wow. Well, we're going to do that. We're going to talk about crypto in the third segment. So remember what you just said, because I think that's really important. Raj, did you have a final comment or question here? No, you're good. Okay. All right, fine. Well, listen, we're going to wrap up this segment with Jason Costain, but we're coming back because we want to talk about crypto. It's the latest hot thing in the financial market, and we want to talk about, buying stuff on social media. So we'll be right back, folks.